white, bright, blinding white light, and his hand was reaching down to me, and it was an angel. Sorry. And my hand just reached up and grabbed its hand. I was thinking to myself, I'm going to reach up there and grab his hand, and this hand is going to save me, because that's all that I saw was just a hand. But my hand knew what to do. It was like having a baseball thrown at your head. Somebody says heads up, and you just reach up and grab it. It's a reflex. My hand just reflects, and a reflex just jumped up and grabbed this angel's hand. And as soon as I touched its hand, we were all motionless and all standing back up on this ground that you can't see. And this beast, this demon, it still had me by the shoulder. It was kind of almost even leaned over a little bit to grab me by the shoulder. And I could instinctively, I knew to stand still, because if I had moved, I know that would have ripped my shoulder and my arm off at the same time and just beat me with it. In the meantime, I thought, okay, well, this is my opportunity. My body's not moving around anymore. It's laying down. It's, in a stable position. I'll just lay back down into my body. And so that's pretty much what I did. I placed my foot inside of my foot and my other foot inside my foot, and I sat down just like I'm sitting now. And I looked back and saw how my body was laying and how my head was positioned, so I just leaned back into my body. And as my head went inside my head, because you got to remember, my soul was laying down into my body. I know it sounds weird when I say my foot inside my foot, my head inside my head, but you'll get the picture now. So anyway, I'm leaning back, and as soon as my head falls inside my head, I'm instantaneously standing up, and I'm in complete darkness. I mean, it's a darkness that you could almost feel. I know it sounds weird, it doesn't make any sense, but that's the only way that I can put it. I mean, because this darkness had like a texture to it, and it was complete darkness. It was just solid black. And I know the first thing I thought to myself is, well, where am I, And I had no clue where I was. I was still wearing everything that I'd been wearing before, only I was just in this place that I didn't recognize at all. And the first thing I noticed is that there is nothing. And when I say nothing, I mean absolutely nothing. There's no light, no wind, no sound, nothing. And I thought to myself, there can't be nothing. I'm standing on something. So I looked down, and I'm standing on nothing. I thought to myself, well, if I was in a completely dark room, I wouldn't be able to see my hand in front of my face. How is it that I'm able to see what there's light coming from somewhere? And so I look up, because that's where pretty much all sources of light are, whether you're inside or outside, they're above you. So I looked up, and I see nothing. And that's when I realized that I was the one that was emanating the light that I was able to see with. I was glowing like a chem light, those little shaped lights that you use for walking around on Halloween, or for the military. We used it for different things, but I said, okay, I don't understand that either. There's a lot of things I didn't understand about this place, but or how I was able to feel things without touching them. I mean, some of these things just made no sense to me whatsoever. So with my back foot in place, I began to spin, and as I'm stretching out, I began to realize that I'm standing in between two parallel planes that stretch on forever, and there's no walls, there's no doors, there's no windows. I'm trapped in between these two parallel planes, and there's no way out. And when I realized that, I pulled my foot back and put it down without even having left where I was standing. Like I said, I stretched out at least 3 football fields worth of length, a good 300 yards. And from that point, I became very scared. But before I could even think another thought, I was snatched up off of my feet by a very, very large demon. Of course, for me, I didn't know what had happened. It was like getting hit by a truck and having no clue that it was ever coming. This thing had come up behind me so fast, and it caught me by complete surprise, and it was so big. And I look to my left, and I see these fingers which come down to roughly the bottom of my chest. And it was even hard to look over to the side because the depth of its hand was like this. The width of its hand was like this. I mean, it literally went from the side of my neck out to maybe past the end of my shoulder, the width of its hand. The color of its skin was black and red. Now, I don't know if it was red with black shadows moving across it, or if it was red with a black oily substance like a cloud moving beneath the skin, so that it makes it have a perception of moving while it's standing still. And this thing was crushing my left shoulder. Now, one thing I do understand in retrospect is that pain when you have no body, when you have a body, I can break a finger and it only hurts here where the break is. It doesn't hurt at my feet. But when you're in your soul's body, when your soul experiences pain, you experience it everywhere because there's no pain receptors. And this thing had a hold of me, and I'm looking down at these fingers, and I'm just thinking to myself, what is this that has a hold of me? And as I'm thinking this, I understand now, also in retrospect, that anything that you think in this place can be heard as if you had spoken it out loud. And this thing had me like this and was just smiling at me. It had looked back and it was smiling at me, waiting for me to look at it. And when I looked over my shoulder and up at it, it was already staring at me. And I understand now that it had heard what I was thinking and just wanted to give me a nice little shock, on top of the pain that I was already experiencing. Just because of the grotesqueness of its face. I mean, this thing was grotesque. This thing is 13 feet tall, and it's not like I sat there and said, okay, stand still, let me grab a step ladder and measure you. Where's my tape measure? No. Anything that you want to know in this place, all you have to do is ask it. Ask it in your mind or ask it out loud, and the answer will be given to you. It doesn't matter. All I know is the thing was huge. It was built like Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime. I mean, just whipped full of muscles. It had no hair whatsoever on its body. None. Other than that, it looked completely human. The differences was this, where our eyes are white. Its was yellow. And where the iris of our eyes can be green or blue or brown, its was gold, and diamond shaped like a snake's, and it had a really flat nose. I mean, just looked like somebody was literally pushing its nose against its face, and its nose was easily as wide as its mouth. And the only thing that looked really strange about its teeth was it had, where we have our canines, it had two tusks coming up out of its mouth like a boar. This thing, like I said, it just picked me up like I weighed nothing to it. And it was taking me along for a ride. It had me by one hand, by the shoulder. It had me by the shoulder with one hand. And it was moving at a very, very fast velocity. And had complete control. I mean, just... there was nothing at all I could do to get away or anything like that. From that point forward, the only way I can describe it is all hope just poured out of me. I literally felt hope and emotion as if it were a physical substance, like water in a cup just being poured out of me. I literally felt hope pour out of me, starting from the inside of my head. It just drained out of my body all the way down and right out through my feet. And once hope left me, it was like I became numb. I don't know if this is in the Bible or not, but I think that the strength of hope is in God. You know, and without God, without any hope, you don't really have a reason to live. You don't have a reason to fight. You don't have any strength whatsoever. So without hope, you don't have strength. And after hope left me, and I was just kind of like going along for the ride, just numb, realizing that this thing was taking me wherever it wanted to take me. That's the next thought that came to me, is where is it taking me? And then the thought instantly came to my mind. The answer did, and the answer was, it's taking you to hell. Now, when I grew up in a Baptist church, I was taught hell was fire and brimstone. That's an empty void of an area, but that's also in the Bible too. We just don't pay much attention. And they shall be cast out into outer darkness, where there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. The outer darkness that they're speaking of is where I landed. I understood that it was taking me to the portion that I did not, certainly anyone would not want to go to, which was the fire and brimstone portion. It was going to take me to that fiery lake and cast me in, and I understood that. And when I understood that, it was mortally appalling, is the only way I can put it. I mean, it played over and over in my head again. It's taking me to hell, it's taking me to hell, it's taking me to hell. And there was just nothing I could do. Nothing I could do to stop it, nothing I could do to prevent it. And I just kind of dropped my head. And while this is playing over and over and over in my head that it's taking me to hell, and I saw this pinpoint of light, you know. Well, before I saw the pinpoint of light, I started thinking to myself, you know, this is wrong. I'm not a bad guy. I've never murdered anyone. I've never molested any children. I've never raped any women or done anything just drastic that you know would cause you to be placed in hell for sure. For me, I was just an average person. I drank a few beers, smoked a few cigarettes. I wasn't like into drugs or, you know, anything like that. I mean, I was just an average guy. I go to church every once in a while, you know, so I didn't really picture myself as bad, you know, not bad enough to end up in hell. But one thing that I understand now is there's plenty of good people in hell. A lot of people that used to call themselves Christians are there, and it's because they didn't really devote their life to God. They lived one foot in and one foot out like I did, you know. And you don't have to be a bad person to go to hell. All you have to do is just be average. God doesn't call us to be average. He calls us to be holy, like He is, you know. And what that really means is you gotta for lack of better words, you don't have to become a Bible-thumping Christian, but you should devote your life to God for as much as you possibly can. And if that puts me in the category of Bible-thumping Christian, then so be it. I'm a Bible-thumping Christian. I would rather be that than in the middle. Because I know where the in the middle gets you. It gets you in the same place that being fully against him gets you. It's kind of like he said in Revelations 3:20, I wish that you were all the way for me or all the way against me, but because you were in the middle, because you were lukewarm, I spit you out. You know, I don't want to be that again. I don't want to go back to hell. I know it's there, and I know the place is not made for us. It was made for them, and we just unfortunately do not realize the reality of the place. The reality of the place is far worse than you can imagine, and I only experienced a taste of it. I landed on the doorstep of hell. That's the way I like to look at it. Or you can even say I landed in the middle of hell, but it wasn't fire and brimstone, although I know for certain that it does exist because that's where it was taking me. And although I never laid eyes on the flames, I know that they really do exist. But as I was thinking this to myself, that I'm not such a bad guy, why am I ending up here? That's when that light appeared. And I looked up at it, it looked like a star far off in the night sky. Something so tiny and insignificant and far away that it couldn't possibly help me. And then I saw it moved off to the left a little bit, and I picked my eyes up, in my head up, and I looked at it, and I thought to myself, did we just change direction, or did it move? And it went back to the right, and I thought for myself, no, for certain, we didn't change direction, it moved. And I thought to myself, what is that? And as I thought that, and began to focus in on it, it just came rushing at me like the only way I can describe it is the speed of this thing was like a bolt of lightning. It came at me so fast that one moment it was just like a tiny little star in the night sky, and the next minute, white, bright, blinding white light. And his hand was reaching down to me, and it was an angel. It's all right. And my hand just reached up and grabbed its hand. I was thinking to myself, I'm going to reach up there and grab his hand, and this hand is going to save me, because that's all that I saw was just a hand. But my hand knew what to do. It was like having a baseball thrown at your head. Somebody says heads up, and you just reach up and grab it. It's a reflex. My hand just reflects. And a reflex just jumped up and grabbed this angel's hand. And as soon as I touched its hand, we were all motionless and all standing back up on this ground that you can't see. And this beast, this demon, it still had me by the shoulder. It was kind of almost even leaned over a little bit to grab me by the shoulder. And I could instinctively, I knew to stand still, because if I had moved, I know that would have ripped my shoulder and my arm off at the same time and just beat me with it. I mean, the thing was just that massively strong. I knew within me there was something telling me, don't move. And I'm just standing there staring up, looking at this angel. And the angel itself, to describe it for you, was 9 feet 6 inches tall. It had brown wavy hair pushed to the back. It had an olive color skin. It wasn't really white, it wasn't really black, it was somewhere in between, but the light that was emanating from within it was so bright white that it almost practically overshadowed the color of its skin. You couldn't even really, you had to stare to see the color of its skin. And I keep saying it because it's an it. It's not really a he or a she. Although the body is shaped like a he. Okay, it's shaped like a male. When you look at its face, the face is like the most handsome man that you've ever seen, blended in perfectly with the most beautiful woman that you've ever seen. I mean, when you look at this angel, you think to yourself, wow, he is beautiful. And I know that's some odd words to say. In the English vernacular, the male is known as handsome and the female is known as beautiful. But this angel was absolutely beautiful. There's no other words for it. And its eyes were blue, and when I mean blue, I mean perfect blue, like someone took a portion of the sky and put it in its eyes, or dipped a cup out of the ocean and poured it into its eye. There was no flaw in it, no flaw. Perfectly beautiful in all ways. Other than its face looking like the cross between a man and a woman, and I don't mean like, oh, is it Pat? No. I mean just beautiful. It was completely shaped like a man. You could see it underneath its white robe. It had chest and it had strong arms. It had an Adam's apple. I mean, it was every bit shaped like a man, and a strong one. I mean, just strong, but not like overly ridiculous like this. It wasn't bodybuilder. It was more like fitness trainer strong. It wasn't like bodybuilder strong, where it just had muscles popping out of everywhere it shouldn't have been, like this demon. But you could tell it was, this angel was there to fight. And he had on a white robe. It was cut down in a V in the front, with gold lace. I guess, I don't even know what to call it, like embroidered gold around the edges of its collar. And not lace, but embroidered gold. And the sleeves came just below the elbows, and this robe was kind of like a white Roman tunic robe. I guess that would be the best way of putting it. And it came just below its knees, so its knees and its elbows were covered. And I was just so blown away by the beauty of it that I didn't even really check to see if it had any shoes on or not. I don't really remember. All I know is it was big. Not as quite as big as the demon, but big enough. And I'm looking up at it, and I'm just blown away by its brightness and its beauty. And at the same time, I'm just frozen in place, because I know that if I move this thing, it's going to rip my shoulder off and just beat me with my arm. And this thing, I can feel its anger, this demon's anger, like heat from a fire. And it turns around like this to see what had stopped it and why. It wanted to know what had stopped it and why. Because technically I was right where I belonged. And once you're there in hell, you don't normally get a chance to leave. So it owned me like a piece of furniture, like your car. It owned me, and it wanted to know why it was being stopped. So it turned around and was ready to fight. Make no mistake, this demon was ready to get down in the worst way. But as it whipped around, this angel its speed was incredible, and it just rushed forward and with an open palm hit this demon, and it had to angle its arm upwards at about the height of its head to hit this demon in the chest. And it hit this demon with such power. I mean, I can't describe the fierceness of the power of this thing, but it hit this demon with such force that its hand was literally ripped from my shoulder. It had no clue what had hit it. By the time it had even turned its head, it was already hit. And this demon was hit with such force that it literally folded up and started flying backwards, folded in half like this, flying backwards. And I'm just watching it fly backwards and skip off this ground that you can't see, like a stone over water. And this angel looked at me and he called me by a long name, and I immediately understood it to be mine. It was a heavenly name. But as soon as it called me this name, it took it from my mind. It called me this name to let me know that, more or less, that I still have a chance to make it into heaven. Like I have a heavenly name. I squandered it. I wasted it. And if this had been my ultimate time, my last breath, for real, that's where I would have stayed. But when he called me this long name, it was a feeling of home. Like when your mom calls you for dinner or supper, however you want to say it, and you know that it's time to go in and eat, and you're all happy, because you just stayed outside playing forever, and you're about to go in and sit with your family. It was like that. It was a feeling of home, and it looked at me and it began to speak to me, and its voice was like a waterfall. If a waterfall could speak, it was like a rushing sound in your ears, like Sean. And I understood later on that it was converting my understanding to understand its language. It didn't descend down to my broken language of English. It elevated me up to understand its language. It messed with my mind, for lack of better words, but it elevated my understanding. And he looks at me and he says, "Hello, my name is Michael." And I immediately knew that this was the archangel of the Bible that spoke of the archangel Michael. And I can tell you for certain, I've seen them both. I've seen the archangel and I've seen Jesus, and they look nothing alike. And they are not the same being. But anyway, he said, he began to speak to me, but I got distracted by this demon that had gotten back up and was coming back after me. It was coming back to get me. And it was coming back to fight this angel for my soul. And so I turned back because I knew that it was coming. I'm sorry. So this angel was still talking to me, so I wasn't really listening to it. I was too focused in on this thing, and it was getting bigger. It was running back after me, and it was getting faster, and it was getting bigger, so it was coming back after me, from this great distance that this angel hit it. And so I looked back at him like, whatever you got to say, please just hurry up and say it, and if you're going to get me out of here, please get me out of here. And this is what I was literally thinking. And he just looked at me and he gave me a saddened look, and he looked at me and he just goes, "Your time has not yet come. It's time for you to go." And he points his finger, and when I stepped in that direction, my soul immediately went back to my body. Just as fast as I had appeared in this place, I left this place, and I was back in my body, laying on that cot where I knew I should have, my eyes opened. And it took me a good 20 minutes to get to walking again, simply because my entire body had fallen asleep. And I'm almost certain that after having been dead for 8 minutes, that there must have been angels there jump starting everything in my body again, because there would have been no blood flowing anywhere.